Yay.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Oh. Okay. I think you get the right mic. Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, welcome to Bhagavat Sravana. Thank you for coming today. Bhagavat Sravana is a program we have every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock with Kirtan. Then we have a speaker speak on the Bhagavad Purana for an hour. 12:30 is Arti, and then about 1 o'clock a vegan feast will be served in the back of the temple room. So you're in store for quite a treat this morning. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj is one of Prabhupada's first disciples. At the age of 18, he found himself at 26 Second Avenue, Prabhupada's first temple, and was initiated there by Srila Prabhupada. His first service, as I understand it, was stapling booklets together. And that just opened up the world of books for him. He's done so much service in the way of Prabhupada's books over the decades. While Prabhupada was here, he had a hand in one way or another in just about all of phases of the publishing of Prabhupada's books. He was a director, the BBT, for decades. He was the editor-in-chief of Back to Godhead magazine throughout the 90s. He travels the world teaching, sharing Krishna consciousness, sharing bhakti with all sorts of people from literally all over the globe. He's a treasure for ISKCON, and we're very, very grateful that he is here with us at Bhagavat Sravana today. He also is the author of a couple books. One is Srila Prabhupada's Kirtan Standards, which is a handbook. Which, do you have any copies of that here today? Yeah, so if anybody wants to look through that, maybe purchase a copy. Maharaj might be persuaded to sign it if you'd like. That's a great book. He also authored Vanity Karma, a real interesting Vaishnava perspective on the biblical chapter, Ecclesiastes, yeah. So please join me in welcoming His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj.
Om Jnana-Timidandasya Anandana Shakaya Chakshurmilitam Hina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shagrashatam Shahagana Bhavanatan Tam Sajivam Satvetam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakantitanscha He Krishna Koruna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Bhakta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Holi Priye Pancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ekada Manurudhyam Ya Vicharan Mrigayam Bane Mrigam Anugata Shranta Shuritas Trishito Kusham Shalashayam Achakshana Prabhivesha Tamasho Tadarsha Munim Asinam Shantam Militalochana. Once upon a time, Maharaj preached while engaged in hunting in the forest with bow and arrows, became extremely fatigued, hungry, and thirsty while following the stags. While searching for a reservoir of water, he entered the hermitage of the well-known Shamik Rishi and saw the sage sitting silently with closed eyes. Purport. The Supreme Lord is so kind to his pure devotees that in proper time he calls such devotees up to him and thus creates an auspicious circumstance for the devotee. Maharaj Parikshit was a pure devotee of the Lord, and there was no reason for him to become extremely fatigued, hungry, and thirsty, because a devotee of the Lord never becomes perturbed by such bodily demands. But by the desire of the Lord, even such a devotee can become apparently fatigued and thirsty, just to create a situation favorable for his renunciation of worldly activities. One has to give up all attachment for worldly relations before one is able to go back to Godhead. And thus, when a devotee is too much absorbed in worldly affairs, the Lord creates a situation to cause indifference. The Supreme Lord never forgets his pure devotee, even though he may be engaged in so-called worldly affairs. Sometimes the Lord creates an awkward situation, and the devotee becomes obliged to renounce all worldly affairs. The devotee can understand by the signal of the Lord, but others take it to be unfavorable and frustrating. Maharaj Parikshit was to become the medium for the revelation of Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Sri Krishna, as his grandfather was the medium for the Bhagavad Gita. Had Arjuna not been taken up with an illusion of family affection by the will of the Lord, the Bhagavad Gita would not have been spoken by the Lord himself for the good of all concerned. Similarly, had Maharaj Parikshit not been fatigued, hungry, and thirsty at this time, Srimad Bhagavatam would not have been spoken by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, the prime authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a prelude to the circumstances under which Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken for the benefit of all concerned. The prelude therefore begins with the words, "Once upon a time." We'll leave it as it is. It's okay. I think it's all right, huh?
Yeah.
So as Srila Prabhupada says, this is the prelude. Actually, we're 18 chapters into Srimad Bhagavatam, the all but last chapter of the first canto. And now the storyline is really just starting. Ekada, once upon a time. Dhanarudyamya, vicharam mrigayam vane. Mrigan anugata. So he was hunting. One might ask why a pure devotee would be hunting animals. But this was his duty as a kshatriya. The kshatriya has to fight to protect the citizens. And if you're not in shape, you can't fight. You have to be sharp. So the kshatriyas would go hunt animals. But the animals killed would be offered in sacrifice, and they would achieve a higher destination. And it wasn't this, what's the word, cowardly killing where you're in a blind somewhere many meters away from the target with some sort of souped up automatic weapon or what have you. They were chivalrous. So with bow and arrow, he was ready he was doing this in the forest one day. And Shranta Kshurita Trishita Birsham. So he became hungry, thirsty, fatigued, Shranta. And Srila Prabhupada comments it's uncharacteristic. Especially Kshatriya wouldn't be expected to tire out so easily. But it was Krishna's arrangement. These are the actions of Yogamaya, Krishna's internal energy. She serves to arrange Krishna's pastimes. Krishna doesn't have to arrange his own pastimes. It's like a big executive. He doesn't arrange his own travel. Someone does that for him. So Krishna doesn't, what is that? Swabhaviki Jnanabala Kriyaja. He has energies that anticipate what he wants or know what he wants, and they just do what's needed. Srila Prabhupada said that's the sign of a first-class servant. A first-class servant anticipates, doesn't even have to be asked, do this, do that. He's ahead of the game and sees what needs to be done. It's only a second-class servant who needs to be told. And the third-class servant, even after you tell him, won't do it. So the first-class servant, Yogamaya, arranges these circumstances for the benefit of the devotees or according to the desire of the Lord. The Lord doesn't have to take time out to do it, but his energies can do it, or the Lord himself can take a particular interest. That's also not out of bounds. The Lord can personally intervene in the life of a devotee. That also through his energies. Everything is through energies, but it doesn't have to be the energy working on her own. The Lord himself can personally direct to this. That can happen. So, Jala Ashayam Achakshanaha, he didn't see any reservoirs of water where he could quench his thirst. But he saw the ashram of this celebrated Shamik Rishi. And Pravivesha, he entered that ashram and saw the sage sitting with closed eyes. As we'll find in coming verses, he thought that this was just a ruse, that the sage was feigning being in samadhi just to avoid him. And we do that sometimes. We pretend to be asleep or whatever, because we don't want to talk to you. So So Parikshit Maharaj thought that this might be something like that, where the sage is deep in meditation, but really he just doesn't want to talk to the king and doesn't want to receive him even. So that was also highly uncharacteristic for such a cultured person as Parikshit Maharaj. There's no cause for thinking that way about a sage. even in ordinary dealings, we give people the benefit of the doubt. And here, even the king, even the sage doesn't get the benefit of the doubt from a cultured king like Parikshit Maharaj. So that means it's Krishna's at work. Otherwise, things couldn't have developed this way. Just as Arjuna, how could Arjuna, the personal friend of Krishna, fall into Maya and start thinking in terms of the bodily conception of life, Kshudram, Hridayadora, Balyam? How could he become weak-hearted and full of trash, as Prabhupada says, in the mind? It's only possible by Krishna's arrangement. We can say Krishna's artistry. Krishna does these things. He sets up wonderful circumstances that capture our interest and that also force various issues for the benefit of the devotee or for the instruction of others. That happened at Kurukshetra. Arjuna was suddenly and unusually chicken-hearted, as we would say. He suddenly didn't want to fight. And here it's unusual also that Parikshit Maharaj is prepared to insult the sage. In purports of this nature, we know from hearing from Srila Prabhupada that he's drawing on his own personal experience. Actually, throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, he draws upon his own personal experience. When Prabhupada in his last days was discussing the writing of future books, Prabhupada said it's not such an easy thing. It's not A, B, C, D. Not just that you go out and you learn some Sanskrit grammar or some English writing skills, and now you're ready to write Vaishnava literature. Prabhupada said people like my purports because they're realized. Realized means that assimilated. It's not just an academic subject matter or something to write and speculate about, but one understands the meaning of these things in terms of one's own mature experience. Even Vyasadeva, he'd written so many books, but then he felt unsatisfied. And then, of course, Narada shows up at the opportune moment, and Vyasa asks, why am I feeling dissatisfied in spite of having written, compiled all the Vedas and written the Vedanta Sutras, and then explained things for the less astute in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. Still I'm dissatisfied. Why? So then Narada instructs him, yes, you haven't written about Krishna directly. You've been beating around the bush. You're just agitating people's minds by avoiding the central subject matter. So Vyasadeva accepted that and then wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. So these things are there. Prabhupada says signals from the Lord. The Lord communicates with the devotees, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in Shastras, sometimes through the words of the Guru or other Vaishnavas. That Bilva Mangala Thakur, through the mouth of his prostitute, Krishna instructed him. So you know the story. Yes, no? He was, Bilva Mangala Thakur was Of course, he became a great Vaishnava poet. But in his earlier days, he was addicted to one prostitute, so much so that uh, during the funeral ceremony of his father, he was just thinking, how can I get out of here and go visit her? So at the earliest, he moved on and toward her house. But then a big rainstorm came up, and it was difficult to travel. But somehow he got over the river by grabbing hold of what seemed to be a log, but turned out to be a dead body, and then moved on and came to the wall of her compound and scaled that with the help of a rope that turned out to be a snake. And then, all bedraggled and sopping wet and so on, he shows up at the door, and she thought, this man's not going to come, but he shows up. And she just said, if only you had as much attachment for Krishna as you do for, my body, how your life would be nice. And that was the turning point in his life. He got it. So that was Krishna's arrangement, speaking through the mouth of the prostitute for his enlightenment. So sometimes it may come through instructions from Shastra, from the Vaishnavas, or even from anyone, or sometimes by some circumstance. Things change. The apple cart is overturned, and what used to work doesn't work anymore. Everything changes. Prabhupada had that experience. He was in business, in the pharmaceutical business, and then there was some theft in the business, and various things happened, and he was wiped out. He had no. He was really in dire straits, and according to his destiny, he said the astrologers had said that he would be very wealthy and so on, but now he had nothing. Anyway, that was part of the picture, but his circumstances, material circumstances in his married life, in his occupation, became unfavorable. And he tried to straighten things out, and they wouldn't straighten out. So he took it as a sign from Krishna. In the Bhagavatam, Yasyaham anugranami harishe tadhanam shanai. The Lord says, when I really favor someone, I take away all his money. Gradually, shanai means gradually. Tadhanam, I just take away his wealth. And then he tries to get it back, and I wipe him out again. Until finally he surrenders. So Prabhupada cited that as his own personal experience. And you can sort of, when you know that, you can read between the lines and see Prabhupada talking about Parikshit Maharaj, but also talking about himself. Sometimes the Lord creates an awkward situation, and the devotee becomes obliged to renounce all worldly affairs. That was Prabhupada's experience. He said he wasn't desiring to give up this world, renounce. But Krishna forced the issue. Krishna forced the issue. So therefore the devotee takes it that he's always under the affectionate care of Krishna, even when things look terrible, as as they often do, the devotee takes it. It is Krishna's mercy. And things go that way. That it shouldn't. It should be going this way. And instead, for no reason, it goes the opposite way. Everything that you're lined up for, expecting, accustomed to, or setting about, it all just reverses or becomes cut off, and for no reason, and then nothing you can do about it. In ordinary circumstance, you say, okay, there's that, so now we'll do this, but nothing works. So the devotee may then understand that this is Krishna at work. The expression is there that you can't fight City Hall. So the devotee sees, okay, this is City Hall. This is Krishna intervening. It's not just the ordinary workings of nature. It's not just the ordinary progress of worldly affairs, but it's Krishna. It's Krishna. Therefore, what is that? Tam vidyat kusam yoga viyoga yoga sangitam. What is that? Gurunapi vichalyate. In the 6th chapter, my book's somewhere. But the devotee sees that the devotee is not disturbed even amidst the heaviest difficulties. Gurunapi vichalyate. He's not disturbed. He says, all right. It's Krishna's arrangement. Prabhupada likened the devotee's position to that of a person like a stock trader. The stock trader doesn't really care whether the markets go up or the markets go down. Because if the markets go up, great, he sells and he's in profit. And if the market goes down, he buys cheap. So either way, he's beyond the comings and goings of good fortune or ill fortune. He's just situated, always dependent on Krishna. All right, Krishna, whatever if you're doing this, all right. And if you're doing that, what is that? Prabhupada said. Yeah, and you can embrace me or you can kick me. Either way is kindness. Krishna's embracing the gopis and he's kicking Kaliyanag. He's kicking the Kaliya serpent on the heads, on his hoods. And the Nagapatnis, the wives of the serpent, they're praying, what pious activities did this serpent perform? Krishna's crashing his souls down on the serpent's the hoods, and the serpent is losing all strength. He's vomiting up all kinds of poison. He's on the verge of death. And the Nagapatnis are saying, what pious activities did this serpent perform that he's been able to get your lotus feet on his head? Even Brahma and the other demigods are praying to get the dust of your lotus feet. And this serpent has got the lotus feet directly. Bam, bam, bam. So whatever Krishna does, the devotee takes to be his kindness. It's not always the kindness we're looking for. But we see that with Parikshit Maharaj. He, as the narration unfolds, we'll find that he says, all right, and just gives up his kingdom. In the prime of his youth, and sits down to hear Bhagavatam. Earlier, Krishna had saved him from the weapon of Ashwatthama. While Parikshit Maharaj was in the womb, Ashwatthama sent a Brahmastra, nuclear weapon, to kill him, and Krishna saved him. But now, Krishna is not saving him. Rather, Krishna is acting as the agent of his death. But Parikshit Maharaj takes it as good fortune. All right, we're meant to get free from this material world. We're reluctant. We don't like to do that. We want to hold on to a comfortable status quo. But sometimes Krishna just, actually all the time, we want to hold on. And Krishna is always sending opportunities to get free from material existence. But we're dull. We don't take them. The instructions are there. The Guru's word may be there. And still we think, well, but. So sometimes Krishna just forces the issue, and then the devotee has to give up his material attachments and become happy. Become happy. Material attachments, family attachment, attachment to wealth and possessions, attachment to our prestige and our reputation. They're all attachment to something temporary. But Krishna sometimes arranges, all right, this is what we're going to do to your possessions, this is what we're going to do to your family life, this is what we're going to do to your reputation, here's what we're going to do to your position. Now what will you do? So the devotee can detect, it's nicely said, a signal from the Lord. The devotee is always looking for direction. What does Krishna want? And sometimes Krishna makes it very clear, sends like a message in 80-point type. And still the fools won't get it. We see that every sign is there of their inevitable death, and they're thinking, well, but there's still this, there's still that. I could do this, I could do that. The game is over, but they're still thinking they can play. They've got some vimudha nanupashyanti. The fools will never understand. But pashyanti jnana chakshusha, those who see with knowledge, with eyes of knowledge, can understand everything. Maybe I'll stop there and see what kind of thoughts or questions there might be. Yes? How not to be fooled. Well, by devotional service, we get this jnana chakshusha. Jnana chakshu, eyes of knowledge. If we don't want to be fooled, then we should follow those who are not going to be fooled. Our tendency is to be fooled since lifetime after lifetime. And if we try not to be fooled by our own strength, we'll be fooled. What is that? Daivihyesha gunamayi mama maya duratya. Maya is very powerful. So the tendency is to be fooled. And again. People do the same stupid things again and again. and they don't get it. Amazingly, astonishingly, they get slapped and do the same thing and get slapped again. Lifetime after lifetime, this is what we're doing. We're trying to exploit the resources of the material energy, trying to grab the honey without getting stung, and we're getting stung again and again. And maybe not even getting the honey. Therefore, the Krishna comes in the form of the spiritual master and in the form of Shastras and Vaishnavas to direct us, and sometimes to tell us, don't be a fool. Directly, Krishna told Arjuna in polite terms, you're speaking like a fool. And that's also the kindness of the spiritual master. Don't be a fool. We think it's fine, and he says, no, it's foolish. So if we're submissive to the spiritual master, if we're willing to be corrected by the spiritual master, then we can be saved from being fooled. Is that okay? It's not just, and it's practical. The spiritual master says, do this, this, and this, or else you'll be fooled. And if we think, well, a little of this, and that, just like no intoxicants, no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex, and we think, well, that's a little much. But sort of to keep my, what's the word? Psychological balance. A little of this or a little of that won't hurt me. And then I wind up being fooled because I neglected the instructions of the spiritual master. So then I'm going to be instructed by the illusory energy. Is that all right? Something else?
Thank you so much. Would it be possible for you to give us an example where in your own life or in the life of people around you, you have seen an indication of somebody getting a clear message and being fooled or not being fooled?
Getting a clear message and being fooled in my own life. Let's see. I've been fooled plenty of times, so let's think about this. Of course, up to the age of 18, I was totally fooled again and again. But I think you mean after that, right? Yeah. Not going to let me off so easy. Let's think about that. Everyone else knows about all the times I've been fooled. Now I have to think about it. Here in New York, there was some, Maya was acting back in our old Brooklyn temple many years ago. There was some fraud going on and someone masquerading as a wealthy heiress when really she was just a prostitute. But somehow she finagled her way into being like a special person. And I just didn't get it. Although the signs were there. Someone showed me, hey, there's meat in this refrigerator, in the deity's refrigerator. And yeah, it was there. I saw it. A little bottle of something or other. And it was like a clear sign. Something is, this is not, definitely not kosher. And I just thought, well, by some mistake, it's gotten there, and sort of brushed it off. Then one of my godbrothers complained to Prabhupada that, Jayadvaita is, obviously an illusion. How could he be editing your books when he's so bewildered? And Prabhupada defended me. He said, he's keeping his nose out of it. He said it was by mistake or something, so, leave him alone. Then after the whole thing came out, the whole fraud was unraveled, I wrote to Prabhupada and said that I thought that I'd been, by bad association, I'd been bewildered by Maya. And Prabhupada didn't say no. Hare Krishna. I'm sure there's many more, but there's one at least that came to mind. One instance of my being bewildered. Yes.
I have a follow-up question on that. Did you know at the time that you were in bad association, or did only in hindsight you saw
I think
that?
it was in hindsight. The bad association was actually the leadership at the time. And in one sense, perhaps that was, what's the word, a self-serving way to put it, blame it on the leadership or blame it on the bad association. Hey, Bubba, it's you, you're stupid, You're not Krishna conscious enough. So perhaps that was a self-serving excuse to blame it on bad association. Although philosophically speaking, if we're in Maya, it's by bad association with the material energy, association with. But from another point of view, it's our own misuse of independence. It's our own foolishness. One might be well advised to take ownership of that. If we're so fortunate as to see in hindsight that we've been foolish somewhere, well, that's good. Better to see it beforehand, before one gets deep in it. Whoops, there's Maya heading our way. We'll take an alternate route. But if we don't get it, at least if we get it in retrospect, what a fool I was. That's, at least then, learn something from our mistakes. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I missed the beginnings of the questions and answers.
Oh, I should add also that the devotees who got it on that fraud thing, Prabhupada said they were real devotees, therefore they could not tolerate. Yes.
I'll have to watch back on catch that. There was something in your class, Marge, you spoke about Bilvamangala Thakur and how he had like that epiphany moment when Chintamani said to him, if only you had, and that kind of boom, that was the transformational point. And so it seems that sometimes we may hear and hear and hear and know and know and know, but the heart doesn't change. So how is it we You know, how do we wait for that epiphany moment, or how do we
Mm.
precipitate it, or does
The
it?
Bhagavatam says it's because our hearts are steel framed. That's why we don't experience ecstasy while chanting Hare Krishna. That's why we don't get these inspirations or epiphanies, because our hearts are steel framed. So why are they steel framed? Prabhupada gives a lengthy purport basically explaining the 10 offenses against the holy name of Krishna. Because we're chanting Hare Krishna, that should do everything. But while we chant, we neglect the orders of the spiritual master. We think that the glories of the holy name are just exaggerations. We interpret the meaning of the holy name in our own way. We think of the chanting of the holy name as a kind of pious act, like works of charity and sacrifice and so on. We commit sinful activities while chanting the holy name. We think, well, yeah, I shouldn't really do this, but because I'm chanting, that'll sort of keep me in the game, keep me going. I really shouldn't be doing this. I know it's wrong, but but I can chant Hare Krishna, and that will neutralize it. That will, it'll be okay. Because I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I can do this. So that's Nam Nad Baladyasihi Papa Buddhi. Prabhupada said the most serious offense, commit sinful activities on the grounds that I'm chanting Hare Krishna. And that's very bad, but we can do that also. In this way, there are 10 offenses. So if we practice avoiding the 10 offenses, then when there's a signal, our consciousness, our eyes will be open enough so that we can see the signal. Otherwise, signals are coming, but what use is like, sending a flare for a blind man? He's not going to see, no signal is going to work. No, at least no visual cue is going to work. So we can't just wait for like the heavens to open up and voices to speak and say, Jayadvaita Swami, what are you doing? Or wait for that blessed dream where, it all gets laid out before you and you say, I should be doing this. If we wait for those extraordinary moments, we could wait a long time. So Prabhupada, devotional service is practical. It's not just something that's high drama all the time. There's work to be done. To avoid the 10 offenses means that it's not just mindless chanting. Now it becomes something that I work at seriously. Sadhana, the very term implies that you're doing some work here. It may not be terrible work or unpleasant work, but it means I'm doing things seriously. I'm attentive. I'm attentive. So by attentively following the orders of the spiritual master, chanting Hare Krishna, having a regular program of Krishna conscious activities, we're best prepared to receive messages when they come. And even best prepared, more eligible to receive messages. Krishna, why bother? He's so dense that there's no point even trying. But if we're seriously endeavoring to be Krishna conscious, then Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Then Krishna can give direction. Yes, let me help. Tesham no. Nashyami Atmabhavasto Gyanadipena Bhasva. Tesham Ivanukam Partam. Yeah. I was thinking, what is that? Tesham Aham Samudharta Mrityu Samsara Sagara. Bhavami Nachirat. Maya Veshata Chetasam. If one fixes one's mind on Krishna as one's business in life, then Krishna uplifts us from the ocean of material, Mrityu Samsara Sagara, the ocean of birth and death. Not chirat, not after a long time. That means quickly, soon, swiftly. Maya Veshata Chetas, because one is serious about Krishna consciousness. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much. This has been very enlightening. I was just wondering, after reading quite a bit about Prabhupada and the phenomenally high standard of his in bringing Krishna consciousness to this world, what do we have today in the ISKCON movement that fills Prabhupada's shoes, in a sense that there is this wonderful, glorifying leader who has the highest integrity and can permeate that down? Is there ways of, let's say, ensuring that all the spiritual masters have somewhat of the Prabhupada spiritual ecstasy or elevation? Or is there a governing board that does that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a governing board that does that, and they've repeatedly failed. There is no guarantee. There's no institution or committee or board that can say, okay, we've checked it out, and this person's going to be solid. This person, is unimpeachable. This person is unassailable by any kind of material influence. They've tried, and it doesn't work. Finally, it depends on Krishna, and it depends on us also to use our own best judgment. We can't really depend on the committee. What do you mean he wasn't bona fide? It says right here, approved by. And finally, it's up to us to follow the advice of Jiva Goswami and examine carefully the characteristics of the person to whom we might hope to surrender and satisfy ourselves. Yeah. And it's up to those who hope to do that service of guiding others to strictly follow, so that they will be able to carry out Srila Prabhupada's desires. And we've had many, I'm talking about the failures of committees, but on the other side we have glorious examples of devotees who, crossed the finish line with, full life, a life of full credit for serving Srila Prabhupada and advancing the Krishna consciousness movement. So finally it's in Krishna's hand and in the hand of the devotee to surrender to Krishna and agree to be guided and protected by Krishna. If we misuse our independence, then we harm ourselves and we bring misfortune to others. But if we seriously, probably it's a simple thing, just follow. If we do that, then it will be wonderful. And we do have a wonderful example, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, just did so much service. Kadamba Kanana Maharaj did so much service. And many devotees, big and small. And on the spiritual platform, there is no big and small. But we have so many examples of devotees. You know, now that times go on, time has moved on. We have those in Jayananda Prabhu and many examples. And my thinking is kind of like that. You know, institutions I have difficulty with. It's just the nature of institutions is that we'll always have difficulty with them. They're necessary but problematic. But you know, where do you find your spiritual inspiration? Well, I don't think I'm going to find it by saying, "Oh, this institution has just overwhelmed me by its, you know, spiritual qualities or something." A little too formal for me, or it's hard to just be inspired by, wow, that committee, what they, you know, their resolution 472. I mean, that just changed my whole spiritual life. You know, I was on the path toward death until they passed that one, and then everything changed. But the institution gets its life from its saints. That's what energizes an institution or a spiritual tradition. It's the saintly people who've embodied the essence of that tradition and inspired us by their lives. Okay.
Yeah, we have a few minutes left.
We do. Oh, okay.
Most cases are not as black and white as the example I'm going to give. And you've touched upon this.
Sounds like it's going to be black. Go ahead.
Bilva Mangala was going off to see a prostitute. All right, and the dead body was not a log, and the snake was not a rope. Prabhupada suffered 2 heart attacks and seasickness. Now, Prabhupada was serving the order of his spiritual master. So, in our lives, it's usually not that black and white. But you know what I'm getting at here? Like, if I'm suffering 2 heart attacks.
Yeah, how do we read the signals?
Right, the interpretation.
You know, you could look at that and say, well, I was planning to go to America and preach, but it looks like Krishna's sending me 2 clear, not just 1, but 2 clear signals. You know, Captain, you're turning around and going back, right, as soon as we reach port. So that may be there. Juhu's another example. Prabhupada had wanted to purchase land for a temple, and everything was going the other way. All the signs were that the smart thing to do is just, before you get any deeper, just cut your losses and get out. But Prabhupada was guided by Krishna and by his own conviction that I've promised Radharasa Bihariji that I'll build them a temple. So I have to do it. Or my spiritual master wanted me to do it, wanted me to come to preach in the Western country, so I'm doing it. So there's a certain, what's the word? Yeah, purity. For a person who's pure, for a person who's determined to serve, the signals will look different. For the ordinary person, we say, okay, it's understandable, this happened and that happened, so he tried and then he couldn't do it, so he went on to something else. Okay, no harm. But for the person who's, that way also it doesn't, he pushed on in spite of everyone's advice and screwed up everything. Not just by great display of determination. Sometimes a great display of determination is the supreme display of obstinacy and foolishness. But sometimes, therefore, it depends on Krishna's mercy and the purity of the devotee. Sometimes the devotee, against all advice and against all circumstances, carries on, and Krishna does something wonderful and glorious and glorifies the devotee. So it's not just a simple thing. Well, when you see signal A, it means this. When you see signal B, it means that. There's to a certain extent, yes, but then ultimately, by Krishna's mercy, one is delivered. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. We'll have RT now, so we'll clear out these cushions and fold up the chairs for a lively kirtan.
And then we'll have brief announcements before the start. Thank you.
Swami, iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Rama
devotee Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. And Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri ki jai. Gangavani ki jai. Jamanamai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled ones. All glories to the assembled ones. All glories to the assembled ones. Go to
Shri
Hare Krishna, everyone. So thank you very much for being present for the Bhagavat Shravan this week. And thank you very much to big loud Haribol for his holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj. So Maharaj is just at the back now, and he has he's at the front now. So he has a book table just on the other side. If anyone is interested, we have Vanity Karma and also the Kirtan Standards books. So they're both there. March will be there if you would like to get a copy, a signed copy. Let's see, a few announcements. Next week for Bhagavat Shravan is the pantomime, correct? Okay, so we have a sort of drama play, panto. It's a kind of traditional English thing to do at Christmas time with a Hare Krishna twist. And so we have a few devotees here who are in it. Vyadrinath Prabhu and Kanta Bhakti are there in the drama, so and a few other wonderful surprises. Sorry? Amrita Kishore Devi is also.
Jayadvaita.
And Jayadvaita, yes.
It's written by Bhagavat.
And written by Baba Bhakti.
And directed by Bhagavat.
And directed by Baba Bhakti. So it's going to have a very English, British twist. And the name of it is Cinderella and the Golden Japa Bag. Bead bag. So we invite everyone to please come for that, a little Krishna conscious humor in the holiday times. So that's next week. And so, yes, we're coming into the holiday season, but it's also Prabhupada Marathon time. So we are reaching around, we have a goal of distributing 501 Bhagavad Gitas during the month of December, which isn't a big goal, but it's pretty big here. So we have reached around the 400 mark. So if anyone is inspired to sponsor some Bhagavad Gitas, you can do that with the QR code or speak to me directly. If you'd like to take some, Thursday night was a wonderful night. We had just over 50 Bhagavad Gitas not only sponsored but distributed en masse during the Thursday night kirtan, and everyone was eager to take, so that was really amazing. And so, so we're distributing Srila Prabhupada's books for the month of December. So if anyone is interested in helping out with that initiative, you can speak to me. Any other announcements? Just the Matchless Gifts programs, Prabhupada Meditations for the next couple of Wednesdays is canceled, just because it's Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. We're not sure what the New Year's Eve program is yet. There will be something, I think Mary Allison and Manohar are working on something for New Year's Eve program here. So we'll keep you posted. You can keep an eye on the WhatsApp updates group or the newsletter. If you're not connected with those, please speak to Baba Bhakti. We can connect you. Otherwise, we're now going to serve the Prasadam feast for the lunch program in the back of the temple hall. Oh, forgot, book distribution. Tomorrow, anyone who's inspired to come out and distribute books, we're doing a collaboration with the Brooklyn Temple. So the devotees from Brooklyn are coming here, and we're going to meet at 11. There'll be some interactions, a talk on book distribution, and then we're going to have prasadam, and we'll go down to Union Square for 3 o'clock. We'll do a walking Harinam there. 3 o'clock, we'll start distributing books in Union Square, and also the Harinam party will be in Union Square underneath, doing kirtan and distributing books. So it will be in Mass tomorrow, and then they'll be in Queens on Tuesday, and then they're at the Rockefeller Center on Wednesday, so like that. So lots of book distribution going on. So if anyone wants to participate, just speak to me, and I can help you out with that. Okay, I think that's it. We'll serve prasadam at the back as always. The prasadam is vegan and it's free, but if anyone would like to make a donation, we have this nice little donation tap box now, and we're still not sure if it's working, so anyone who would like to test all three of them, there's a 20, a 10, and a 5 to help us out, just so we know it's working. Send it out through, we're really happy. He keeps asking me, get everybody to test it, so we're just trying it out like that. Okay. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Which is also a great place where chords and things or here.
Never seen
Ever. Yeah.
Thank you.